Dear friends, the purpose of this series of posts is to reflect on and discuss my coaching experience as a CXO coach. I coach working professionals, typically 40 to 45 years old, who are either CXOs or aspiring to grow into that role. So, what are the typical kinds of professional and career challenges they face? How prevalent are these challenges? How are these senior professionals coping with these challenges? So, I have with me Mr. Sridhar Balakrishnan, Group CEO at Duroflex. Sridhar is a very accomplished professional. Before Duroflex, he was MD and CEO with ACC Limited and held senior leadership positions at Star India and Marico. Okay, once again, good morning, Sridhar.
Thanks, Ramesh.
So, Sridhar, to begin with, let me start with the challenge of professional growth. So, what are your views on the challenges that CXOs face in seeing further vertical growth in their respective organizations?
So, Ramesh, I think for existing CXOs, this is a challenge because as the pyramid gets narrower, there are fewer roles left for CXOs to kind of aspire for. What is also changing is the expectations from CXOs today. The delivery expectations, whether it's stakeholders or the street, etc., can be quite unforgiving. So this is certainly a reality that CXOs face, and I faced it in my career. Became functional head quite some time back, and then typically the whole question of how do you manage your career and how do you manage your growth, etc. These are dilemmas that you face. In my experience, I think what has worked for me is I've generally tried to focus on factors in my control. We've discussed this. Outcomes are as they say, luck is a function of preparedness meeting opportunity. Nothing much that you can do about the opportunity piece, but there is a lot that one can do about being prepared. And the reason, Ramesh, I'm calling this out is I've seen myself being a victim of this, and I've seen friends of mine where, it's important to try and isolate factors that you can influence and control instead of trying to control all possible 20 things, most of which you have no control over. So I've always constantly sought inputs, whether it's books or whether it's industry veterans or whether it's my ex-superiors, peers, bosses, coaches, mentors. And I have never shied away in terms of picking up the phone and speaking to my coach. I had a coach in Marico, speaking to my mentors or friends, etc. And the other thing is, I think, learning agility, resilience, ability to reach out to your network and actually leverage them. And I mean that in the positive sense. Fourth is, I think, being resilient. Life will throw its own curveballs. The question is how resilient you are. I think these are things which have helped me in being a happy CXO or a happy professional. And I'm assuming that that translates into delivery also. But the question is, are you adding value every year as a CXO to yourself and the business? Classically, all of us suffer from this Mera Kya Hoga syndrome. But rather than wasting energy on that, if people were to focus on what are the value they're delivering to the business and to themselves, I think the probability of their succeeding or moving up the ladder or having a more fruitful stint or handling diversity of assignments would improve radically. So at least this has been my two piece on how it's played out for me.
Wonderful, wonderful. So the most important takeaway for me is that to focus on things which are within one's own control.
Absolutely.
And to focus on the few key essentials like resilience and so on, which you mentioned.
Yes.
So Sridhar, let me move on to the next thing I want to ask you. So a CXO, many a time, is a functional leader. So how important do you think it is to acquire cross-functional competencies even before maybe becoming a CXO in order to be a successful CXO and to grow further?
I think it's extremely important, Ramesh. I would just broaden the discussion point to seeking diversity of experiences. So there are times there could be opportunities which could come your way, which may not be following the conventional, let's say, the path often taken by professionals. At that point in time, it may seem, you may really wonder as to whether one should really embark on that because untested roles, roles which have not been there in the industry, first time in the industry, first time in the organization, and no past precedent of how those roles are panned out. I think there are times taking up those assignments, creating something from a scratch and building it to stature and scale, not only add tremendous value to you as a professional, adds to your resume, your credibility within the organization and the industry. In my professional experience, if I look at it, some of the factors, luck being a big one, which have really contributed is that I've been fortunate to set up roles from a scratch. For example, the entire customer marketing role, which was set up in Marico, was never there in the industry at that point in time. I, for example, wasn't too convinced about it, right? So people like you and Arnab convinced me to take up that role. And then that role became an integral part of any consumer business. And not only did it add value to my credibility within the system, but I learned a lot, not only cross-functional experiences, But people miss out on these softer aspects of managing an organization, working in head office, the art of influencing, right? Diversity of experience opens up new neural networks in the brain, right? It forces you to engineer yourself. And last but not the least, I think you become a better problem solver, because an ability to look at it holistically comes in if you have multiplicity of experiences. So take on challenges. At least it's helped me in terms of stuff which I'd never done before. Multifunctional challenges. If there are opportunities to work in cross geographies, it's very, very important. Learning to work with different cultures, learning to work with people of different ethnicities, it adds different dimensions to your own learning curve.
So my takeout is, one is to actively seek diversity of experience, including cross geography and cross functional exposure. It may not be the straight and narrow path to the top, but it adds many sides to a person, right? So Sridhar, let me move on to my own coaching experience. I have seen senior people, CXOs or the level below, overly attached to praise and criticism. Everybody likes praise, and maybe all of us are sensitive to criticism, and it becomes, it kind of really sometimes paralyzes a manager.
Yes.
So what's your take on this? Have you come across this, and have you dealt with it at your own personal level?
No, Ramesh, we're all human beings, right? So who doesn't like praise and who likes criticism? So let's put it this way, getting an emotional high context to praise and going, reacting aggressively to criticism. I think all of us are guilty of it to varying degrees at various points in their careers. When professionals take it to an extreme, then it starts becoming dysfunctional. And the way it starts becoming dysfunctional is people stop telling you the truth. You really don't know what's going on. And across the org, right? Second thing is, people may have smart guys, people younger than you, smarter than you, might be having better ideas, but if they perceive you as a person who cannot take critique or who cannot take a voice of dissent, people will stop coming to you with good ideas. In today's world, unlike, let's say, 25, 30 years back when we started our careers, today there is no asymmetry of information, right? If there is a dysfunctional style of leadership, the news spreads far and wide in the market, because everybody knows somebody. The degree of freedom is maybe 2 or 3. So everybody is connected to everybody in a manner of speaking. And once your reputation spreads, your ability to attract and motivate talent also starts dropping. So it's very, very important, I think, as human beings and as leaders, to be deeply sensitive. First of all, it's futile living in a state of denial. But what has really helped me is surrounding myself with a bunch of people who have actually shown me the mirror every time. Not only in this particular aspect, there are a lot of aspects of life as such, right? And which do percolate or which do pervade onto your leadership style. And Ramesh, I think I've consciously made attempts to have friends among my peer set, or even my subordinates, and even my bosses. So till I was CEO, I obviously had a boss who could show me the mirror. But I've had cases where my assistants have come and told me, saying, Sridhar, I think yesterday this is what you did wrong, and I think this is why people are uncomfortable. And Ramesh, I've course corrected. There is nothing wrong. There's no point in being defensive about it. But the important thing in this is acceptance, that you're human and you could fail. Surrounding yourself with people who can show you the mirror becomes the most important thing, Ramesh.
Wonderful. So the importance of being self-aware.
Massive.
At the same time, having a feeling of self-worth, that criticism does not you take the positives out of that criticism and make something out of it.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is what you're saying. Thanks so much, Sridhar, for those perspectives. Let's continue this conversation in the second part.
Yeah.
Thank you.